When a man stops treating you like just a friend, the first place you'll feel it is in the way his attention changes. Not dramatically, not in some obvious movie scene kind of way, but in a quieter, more telling shift. His attention becomes selective. Before, you were someone he enjoyed. Now, you are someone he chooses. And that difference matters more than most people realize. In friendship, attention is casual. It floats. You talk when it's convenient. You see each other when paths cross. You reply when you get around to it. But when romantic interest begins, attention narrows. His mind starts returning to you even when you're not there. He remembers things you said weeks ago. He notices small changes in your mood. He begins to track your world in a way that goes beyond politeness. This isn't accidental. It's how attraction works. The brain prioritizes what feels emotionally significant. And when you start occupying more of his mental space, it shows in where he directs his energy. You'll see it in the way he looks at you when you're talking. He's not just listening, he's tuned in. There's a presence there that wasn't before. And presence is powerful because it's the rarest form of attention. In a distracted world, when someone gives you their full awareness, it's a signal that something inside them has shifted. This selective attention also changes how he behaves in groups. You might notice that when you're around other people, he still orients toward you. His body turns your way. His jokes are aimed at you. His reactions are calibrated to your responses. It's subtle, but it's deeply revealing. He's no longer relating to you as part of the crowd. He's relating to you as the person he most wants to connect with in that room. Psychologically, this happens because attraction creates a kind of internal hierarchy. We all have limited emotional bandwidth, and when someone rises to the top of that hierarchy, they receive more of our focus, more of our care, more of our time. He may not be consciously thinking, I like her more than a friend, but his behavior is already answering that question. There's also something philosophical here that's worth understanding. Attention is a form of devotion. Where we place our attention is where we place our life. When a man starts placing more of his attention on you, he's slowly investing part of himself in you. An investment creates attachment. The more he invests, the more he feels. And the more he feels, the harder it becomes to pretend you're just a friend. This is why you don't need grand declarations to know when something has changed. You don't need dramatic gestures, you need awareness. Is he more present? Is he more curious about you? Does he give you a kind of focus that feels different from everyone else's? These are not small things. They are the quiet beginnings of something bigger. And the key for you is not to chase this attention or try to force it. Let it come to you. When attention is freely given, it's meaningful. When it's demanded, it loses its truth. So remember this, when his attention becomes selective, when you start feeling chosen instead of just included, that's the moment friendship begins to shift into something far more powerful. And that's where real connection is born. As that selective attention deepens, something even more important begins to happen beneath the surface. His emotional investment starts to grow. This is the point where you stop being just someone he enjoys being around and become someone he actually cares about. And that distinction is everything. Enjoyment is light and easy. Caring is heavy in the best possible way because it carries consequence. You'll notice this shift in the way he reacts to you. Your happiness starts to matter to him in a way it didn't before. If you're excited, he's excited. If you're quiet or off, he notices. He may not always know what to do about it, but the fact that he registers it is significant. Emotionally invested people don't just observe, they feel. Your emotional state begins to affect his own. And that's a powerful indicator that you've moved beyond the neutral zone of friendship. Psychologically, this happens because attachment is built through emotional attunement. When someone starts tuning into your inner world, they know longer just sharing experiences with you, they're sharing meaning. He begins to see you not just as a companion, but as a person whose feelings have weight in his life. That's when your words start to linger with him and your reactions start to matter. You might also notice him becoming more protective of the connection, not in a controlling way, but in a careful one. He thinks before he jokes. He considers how things he says might land. He doesn't want to hurt you or disappoint you. That self-regulation is a quiet form of respect, and respect is one of the foundations of attraction. When a man emotionally invests, he becomes more mindful because the relationship now has value. There's also a philosophical truth here that's easy to overlook. We invest emotionally in what we believe has a future. People don't deepen their feelings for something they see as temporary. When his emotional investment grows, it means some part of him has started to imagine you in his life in a more lasting way, even if he hasn't put that into words yet. This is why emotional investment often comes with vulnerability. He might start sharing more personal thoughts, worries, or hopes. He's letting you see the parts of him that are not just confident or funny, but human. And vulnerability is not something people give to those they feel neutral about. It's given where there is trust, and trust is given where there is desire for connection. You may also feel a subtle shift in how supported you feel by him. He checks in. He remembers things that matter to you. He wants to be someone you can lean on. That's not casual. That's someone stepping into a more meaningful role in your emotional world, just as you've stepped into his. What's important here is not to rush this stage or try to define it too early. Emotional investment needs room to grow. When it's nurtured by warmth, not pressure, it becomes stronger and more stable. Your job is not to demand more from him, but to notice what he's already giving. Because here's the truth that changes everything. When someone starts carrying your emotions alongside their own, you are no longer just part of their day. You are part of their heart. And that is the moment friendship begins to quietly turn into love. As emotional investment grows, the way he communicates with you inevitably changes. This is one of the most reliable signals that he's no longer treating you like just a friend, because communication is where intention quietly reveals itself. Friends talk when it's easy. People who are emotionally attached talk because it matters. You'll notice that he starts finding reasons to reach out that don't need an excuse. He doesn't just text because there's some practical reason to. He messages because something reminded him of you, because he wants to hear your voice, because he wants to share a thought that would feel incomplete if he didn't send it to you. That impulse is significant. It means you've become part of the way his mind organizes experience. When something happens in his day, you're one of the people he instinctively wants to tell. There's also a subtle shift in consistency. In friendship, communication is often irregular. It spikes when you see each other and fades when life gets busy. But when his feelings deepen, that pattern smooths out. He checks in. He keeps the thread alive, not in a needy way, but in a way that says, I don't want this connection to drift. Consistency is the behavioral signature of care. Psychologically, this happens because communication reduces emotional distance. When a man wants to feel close to you, he uses conversation to bridge the space between you, even when you're physically apart. Each message is a small bid for connection, a way of saying, I'm here, and I want you to be here with me. And the more often he does that, the more the relationship moves out of the casual zone and into something more intentional. You may also notice the tone of his communication evolving. It becomes more personal, more open, more specific to you. He remembers details you've shared. He references things from past conversations. This isn't just good memory, it's emotional engagement. When someone is invested, they track what matters to you because you matter to them. At the same time, he might begin to reveal more of himself through what he says, his hopes, his frustrations, his thoughts about the future. Communication becomes less about passing time and more about in a life. That's a profound shift. It means he's not just talking to you, he's letting you know him. There's also an important philosophical layer here. Words are not just tools for information, they are tools for connection. When he chooses to speak to you more often, more deeply, and more honestly, he's choosing intimacy. And intimacy is the bridge between friendship and love. For you, the key is not to overanalyze individual messages, but to look at the pattern. Is he showing up in your inbox, in your life, in your emotional space with a kind of steadiness that wasn't there before? That steadiness is a form of commitment, even before it has a name. And the more he communicates with you in this way, the more he builds a habit of closeness. Habits become bonds, bonds become feelings, and feelings eventually demand expression. So the question is not whether he sends the perfect text or says the right thing. The question is whether he keeps choosing to stay connected. Because when someone keeps choosing you again and again, that's no longer just friendship. It's the quiet beginning of something far more meaningful. As communication becomes more personal and consistent, another layer of change begins to reveal itself in a way that often speaks louder than words ever could. His body language and the way he shows up around you start to shift. This is where what he feels internally starts to leak into how he moves, where he stands and how long he stays. And because body language is largely unconscious, it's one of the most honest indicators of emotional intention. You may notice that he positions himself closer to you than he used to. He finds reasons to sit beside you instead of across the room. When you're walking together, he naturally drifts nearer. When you're talking, he doesn't rush away. He lingers. That lingering is important. In psychology, proximity equals preference. We stay physically close to the people we feel emotionally drawn to, often without realizing we're doing it. There's also a shift in eye contact. He looks at you longer, not in a staring way, but in a way that feels attentive and warm. His eyes don't just skim over you, they rest on you. Eye contact is a form of connection that bypasses words, and when it deepens, it creates a sense of intimacy that's hard to ignore. It's the difference between talking to someone and truly seeing them. You might also notice small gestures that weren't there before. He turns toward you when you speak. His body opens rather than closing off. His feet point in your direction. These are subtle signals, but they all communicate the same thing. You have his attention and he wants to be engaged with you. When someone is romantically interested, their body naturally aligns with the person they're drawn to. There's also something in the way he reacts to your presence. When you enter a room, he notices. His energy lifts slightly. He becomes more animated, more alert. That's not performance. That's attraction. Your presence stimulates him in a way that goes beyond comfort. And that stimulation creates a kind of quiet excitement that shows up in his posture, his expressions, and his tone. Philosophically, this matters because the body doesn't lie the way words can. People can say all the right things and still keep emotional distance, but the body moves toward what the heart wants. When his physical presence begins to orient around you, it's because something inside him has already chosen you as someone special. This is also where you may feel a difference in the emotional atmosphere between you. There's more tension, more charge, more awareness of each other. Not awkwardness, but possibility. That feeling is created when two people are no longer just relaxed around each other, but alive to the potential of something more. It's subtle, but once you feel it, you can't unfeel it. The key for you is to trust what you sense, not just what you hear. Your intuition is picking up on these physical cues, even if your mind hasn't labeled them yet. When someone's body starts telling a different story than their words, the body is usually telling the truth. So if he stands closer, looks longer, and seems more present when you're around, don't dismiss it as coincidence. That's attraction expressing itself before it finds language. And here's the thought to take with you. When someone's body keeps moving toward you, it's because their heart already has as his physical pre-say, NCE and emotional attention become more focused on you. The way he spends time with you also begins to change. This is where you stop just hanging out and start experiencing something that quietly feels like more. He no longer simply shares time with you, he begins creating moments. And that shift from passively being together to intentionally setting something up is one of the clearest signs that he no longer sees you as just a friend. You'll notice that he starts to suggest specific plans rather than vague ideas. Instead of "we should catch up sometime," it becomes "let's go for a walk after work," or "there's a cafe I want to take you to." The difference is subtle but powerful. Specificity reveals intention. When someone takes the time to imagine an experience with you and then brings it into reality, they're no longer just responding to life, they're shaping it around you. Psychologically, this happens because attraction motivates effort. We are willing to invest energy in what we value, and when a man begins to plan moments with you, he's investing not just time but thought. He's considering what you might enjoy, how you might feel, and what kind of memory the two of you could create together. That's not casual. That's someone who is emotionally engaged. These moments also start to carry a different emotional tone. There's more presence, more awareness, more care. He might dress a little better. He might arrive a little earlier. He might seem more focused on how the time together unfolds. That's because these moments matter to him. They're no longer just ways to pass the time, they're opportunities to connect. There's also a philosophical truth behind this shift. Friendship is built on shared circumstances. Romance is built on chosen experiences. When he starts choosing to create moments with you, he's stepping out of convenience and into intention. He's saying, without words, "I want to be here with you on purpose." You may also notice that these moments begin to feel more emotionally charged. The conversation goes deeper. The laughter feels warmer. The silence feels more comfortable. That's because when two people are both emotionally present, even simple things take on meaning. A walk becomes a memory. A coffee becomes a connection. Time becomes something you don't want to waste. What's important here is not to label these moments too quickly, but to feel them. Notice how you feel when you're with him. Do you feel seen? Do you feel chosen? Do you feel like this time matters? Those feelings are not random. They're being created by the way he's showing up for you. And just as importantly, you don't need to force these moments to happen. When a man wants more than friendship, he will find ways to create them. Your role is simply to be present, open, and aware. Because here's the truth that cuts through all the confusion. People don't go out of their way for something that means nothing to them. When he begins to turn ordinary time, NTO, meaningful moments, it's because you've become more than a friend in his eyes. So pay attention not just to how often you see him, but to how deliberately he makes those moments happen. That's where intention lives. And intention is the bridge between friendship and love. When all of these shifts have been building, the focused attention, the emotional investment, the deeper communication, the changed presence, and the intentional moments, there comes a point where something inside him no longer feels comfortable staying undefined. This is where he begins to move toward clarity, not always with a dramatic confession, but through actions that quietly refuse to live in ambiguity anymore. And that's one of the truest signs that he has stopped seeing you as just a friend. Ambiguity is safe. It allows someone to enjoy closeness without risking rejection. But when feelings grow, safety becomes less satisfying than honesty. Psychologically, the human mind seeks coherence. We want our emotions and our reality to line up. When a man starts feeling something real for you, the gap between what he feels and what he shows becomes harder to tolerate, so he starts closing that gap. You'll see this in the way he becomes more direct. He may reference the closeness between you. He may ask subtle questions about your dating life. He may check in on where you stand emotionally. These aren't casual curiosities. They are attempts to orient himself in a space that now feels emotionally significant. And he wants to know where he fits because you've started to matter. There's also a shift in how he treats the connection. He becomes less comfortable drifting in and out. Consistency becomes important to him. He doesn't want to lose momentum. He doesn't want misunderstandings. He wants alignment. That's not control, that's care. When something is valuable, we protect it with clarity. Philosophically, this is the moment where courage meets desire. It takes courage to say, "This matters to me." It takes courage to risk hearing something you might not want to hear. But real connection requires that courage because love can't live in a fog. It needs air, light, and truth. What's powerful about this stage is that you don't have to force it. When someone wants more than friendship, they are eventually pulled toward clarity by their own emotions. Your job is simply to notice whether his actions are moving toward you or staying safely neutral. Direction tells the story, and here's where this becomes deeply important for you. When he moves toward clarity, you get to decide what you want. You no longer have to guess. You no longer have to live in emotional limbo. You get the gift of honesty, even if it feels scary. That honesty allows you to choose with self-respect rather than hope alone. This is also why it's so important not to settle for confusion. Someone who truly wants you will not want to leave you uncertain forever. They may take time, they may be imperfect, but they will move, because desire, when it's real, seeks expression. So if you notice that he's no longer hiding behind ambiguity, that he's starting to let his actions reveal his intentions, take that seriously. It means something inside him has decided that you are worth the risk. And the reflection to carry with you is this: when someone chooses clarity over comfort, they're not just showing interest, they're showing readiness for something real.